There were no radio or reported at this time, no radio or distress calls from the pilot that would indicate any sort of a problem during the initial phase of the flight. There were several witnesses that were driving in the vicinity of the retirement home, one of which did see what he thought was a helicopter, a flash of some kind coming from the helicopter. He looked up, he thought something may have been wrong, and saw the helicopter descending in toward the parking lot here at the retirement center. That particular person followed the track of the helicopter in his vehicle, came to this area and saw that there was smoke and flames. He then got out of his car and tried to assist with other folks that were in the vicinity to help the paramedic out of the helicopter, which was on fire. And I will say that that some of the folks here at the retirement home, the staff that were here, there were some pretty heroic actions. The helicopter was on fire. Several of the folks came in close to the flames and tried to get the paramedic out, which they did. And of course, he was transported eventually to the Parkland Medical Center for extensive burn injuries. I do not know what his condition is at the moment. However, he was transported in serious to critical condition with severe burns over his body. At this time, we do not have any particular probable cause, if you will, for the accident. The process will take some time. As you can see behind me, we've done detailed inspections of the aircraft as it sits on the ground. At some point later this evening or tomorrow, we will be moving the wreckage to a secure facility for more detailed examination of the components and the engine. We'll be conducting more witness interviews. We'll be doing weather evaluations. We'll be looking for any type of clues that we can find to try to find out what happened.
Yeah, I was driving to the donut shop south down Rockwell, and I saw a flash in the sky, and I immediately started watching what that was, which was an aircraft, and its descent seemed to be deteriorating. It was falling, it looked like, or at least a downward descent to crash, and continued on down the road, not thinking too much about it because my stereo was blaring, and turned right at Britain and drove a little further and came across smoke, and looked in the direction of the smoke as I drove a little further and saw the flames, and made an immediate turn to see, because there was no emergency vehicles there, and I saw three people that turned out to be women trying to put somebody out, trying to put a body that was rolling around, on fire out, and I parked my vehicle about 50 feet away, what I thought was a safe distance, and ran to the site, and noticed that they still didn't have the man out, and he seemed to be reigniting even while he was being fire extinguished, and so the helicopter was making the sound of a tea kettle and still flaming, and I said, we need to get away from here. Grabbed the man by his hand, pulled him about 20 to 25 feet clear of the pool of aircraft fuel, asked if there was anybody else on board, and turned to maybe go to the aircraft, and there was no sound, and within that hesitation, the aircraft exploded again.
And so this guy was responded. He was alive and talking to you, and
Oh yes.
Okay. And what was he telling you? You said he was going through some pains, and
he was telling me to turn him over. He felt extreme pain in his leg, and I told him I couldn't do that, and he wanted me to take his jacket or his flight suit off, and I couldn't do that because when I grabbed him by the hand, I felt his flesh move, and you'd seen that some of his flesh was burned very badly, and I thought that the flight suit was more protection than should be taken off.
So what did you do? What could you do?
Are you cold anywhere? In his hand, he said, my hand. and I grabbed his hand and held his hand and told him to hold on, that they were on their way, being the medics were on their way. And within that time, there was a pause and him groaning, and I looked upward and said, "God, please." And within that time, I heard the medics, and the medics showed up, and within that a split second of that.
Last question for the video, I guess. Here, over there, they're saying hero. They're calling the nursing home people. They're calling you. They're saying you're a hero, and you guys were extremely brave.
The women that were standing in the aircraft fuel, trying to put this guy out, there was a black woman, a white woman, and a Hispanic woman. They came together at that point, like people should, just doing the right thing, And that was to me, that is the most awesome thing about this deal, is that sorry that 2 people had to die, and hopefully this man will survive. But to see how people come together, to see people, especially 3 very, very brave women, standing in aircraft fuel while there's a fire right next to them, with actually a fire right in between them, that they were trying to put this man out, and weren't giving up, and showed no fear with a deadly situation right next to them still. That's just amazing to me. And the only thing I thought was, let's don't anybody else get hurt or catch fire. And so I grabbed him and pulled him, and they followed. They followed me and him, and not long after that, there was an explosion. I felt like that was why I was there. And I really didn't think about being scared until I turned to go maybe back to the aircraft, and in that pause, just a pause, it exploded, and that little bit of fear right there probably saved me from getting hurt. There was no one that was going to make it out of there anyway, and I knew that, but just the thought and that hesitation probably saved me from getting closer. I'm kind of stupid sometimes, you go do stuff like that.
How do you feel?